Hello and welcome to Craftiosity, where creativity comes to you with monthly craft kits delivered to your door. This month we're making a Broderie Anglaise Constellation lantern. You'll learn the art of Broderie Anglaise, stitching a design inspired by star constellations before transforming your work into a stunning fabric lantern for use with an LED tea light. Inside your kit you'll find your constellation design template, your self-adhesive panel, an embroidery hoop, an edging tool, your needle and embroidery thread, blue fabric, tape, LED tea light, 2 metal rings and 2 base discs. You'll also find your step-by-step photo instructions and a little something for your pinboard. Place your self-adhesive plastic panel on top of your fabric and draw around it in pencil. This is how much of the fabric will be used for the lantern. Don't cut the fabric down just yet. Take your printed Constellation template and place the self-adhesive panel on top. There's a thin line across each of the long edges of your plastic. Make sure the constellation design sits within these 2 lines. Draw along the 2 long edges of your plastic onto the paper template underneath. Cut along these pencil lines on your paper template. Your constellation template should now be the same width as your self-adhesive panel piece. On your template, carefully use your scissors to poke holes through each of the circles. Try to keep the hole roughly the same size as the printed circle. Twist your scissors around to help give the hole a round shape. Place your template with holes onto your fabric, lining it up with the top and bottom pencil lines that you drew on in the very first step. There should be an even gap on the left and the right of the template. Use your pencil to draw through the holes directly to the front side of your fabric. Remove the template. The constellation pattern will be on your fabric. If your circles are faint or uneven, go over them with your pencil. Use a ruler or the edge of your self-adhesive panel to draw a straight line in pencil between each of the dots to complete the constellations. Check the template to make sure you join the dots correctly. You'll start with one constellation. Loosen the screw at the top of your embroidery hoop and separate the outer hoop from the inner hoop. Place the inner hoop on your work surface and lay your fabric on top, ensuring the design is centered in the hoop. Push the outer hoop down on top. If it's too tight, you can further loosen the screw. Gently pull the fabric around the edge of the hoop to ensure it's nice and taut. Then tighten up the screw to secure the fabric between the 2 hoops. Cut a piece of embroidery thread roughly the length of your fingertips to your elbow. Don't cut your thread too long as it can get tangled as you work. Your piece of thread is made up of 6 individual strands and we want to separate off 3 of these to stitch with. Take 3 strands in each hand and slowly pull apart, allowing the thread to untwist as you pull. Thread 1 set of the 3 strands through the eye of your needle. Then tie a knot in the other end of your threads. Choose one of the circles on your constellation to begin stitching. Push your needle through the fabric from the back to the front. Pull all the way through until your knot is snug against the back of your fabric. Following the outline of the circle, make a small stitch and push your needle back down through the fabric from the front to the back. Bring your needle up through your fabric from the back to the front, leaving a gap from the end of your first stitch. Try to make the gap about the same size as your first stitch. Going back towards your first stitch, push your needle down through your fabric from front to back, going through the threads of your first stitch, splitting the threads as you push through. This is called a split stitch. And let's just show you that again in yellow on a larger stitch so it's easier to see. So pushing your needle through the fabric from the back to the front, pulling it all the way through until the knot is snug against the back of the fabric, and then making a small stitch following the outline of your circle, pushing your needle back down through the fabric from the front to the back. Then bringing your needle up through your fabric from the back to the front, leaving a gap from the end of your first stitch that's about the same size as your first stitch. Then going back towards your first stitch, push your needle down through your fabric from the front to the back, going through the threads of your first stitch, splitting the threads as you push through. Repeat this process to create a ring of split stitches around the edge of your pencil circle. On the final stitch, insert your needle into your first stitch again to complete the ring. Leave your needle threaded and attached to your work. Take your embroidery scissors and pierce through the fabric in the middle of your ring of stitches, being very careful not to cut through any of the stitches. Twist your scissors around to ensure you have a nice round hole. The hole should extend all the way up to the edge of your ring of stitches. Bring your needle up through the middle of the hole you just created from the back to the front. Then create a stitch going out from the hole, inserting your needle down through the fabric from the front to the back. Repeat this process directly next to the stitch you just created, bringing the needle up through the hole and creating a stitch before going down through the fabric from the front to the back. Vary your stitch lengths, alternating between shorter and longer stitches to create a starburst effect. Work your way around the edge of the hole, creating stitches that are very close to each other, radiating outwards from the hole. Your ring of split stitches should be completely covered, and the fabric edges of the hole should be neatly encased in stitches. To move from one circle to the next, you'll create a line of stitches along your pencil line. Create a normal stitch along the line, bringing the needle up from the back to the front, travelling forward to create a small stitch, then push the needle down from the front to the back. Bring the needle up through the fabric from back to front a short distance from your first stitch. Work backwards and go back down through your fabric in the same hole that your first stitch ended. This is called back stitch. Repeat the previous step to create a solid line of stitches that are evenly sized. Stop when you reach the edge of the next pencil circle. Repeat the earlier stitching process to create a ring of split stitches, then make a hole in the centre of your stitches and stitch a starburst around the hole. When your thread runs out, simply fasten it off on the back with a knot, then thread your needle with the next length of embroidery thread and begin again. Complete this process to stitch each of the circles and lines of your constellation. Once your first constellation is complete, you can take the fabric out of your embroidery hoop and move it to the next constellation. Repeat until you have stitched all 4 constellations. Then trim all your threads down as short as possible and iron your fabric, covering it with a clean tea towel before ironing, then move on to the next step. We're now going to place the self-adhesive panel onto the back of your fabric where the knots are. Peel off one end of the gridded backing paper from your self-adhesive plastic panel. Place the sticky side against the back of your embroidered fabric piece. Make sure you line it up so that your stitching is within the line running along the long edges of the plastic. Remove the rest of the backing paper and smooth your fabric onto the self-adhesive panel a bit at a time, working from the middle out to the edges. Turn over and smooth the fabric down from the front, paying particular attention to the fabric close to your stitches, pressing it down onto the plastic. Once this is done, following the edge of the plastic with your scissors, cut off the excess fabric. Fold along the creased edges on the plastic panel until they snap off, then peel the plastic strips off the fabric. You should now have a plastic panel section with a strip of exposed fabric along each of the long edges. Place a short strip of the double-sided red tape along one of the short edges of your plastic, ensuring it is on the plastic side and not the fabric side. Remove the red plastic backing from the tape. Stick a strip of the double-sided red tape around the outside of each of the metal rings. Peel off the red plastic backing from the tape. Fold the tape all the way around the ring so they're covered in sticky tape. Place the sticky rings onto the edge of the plastic backing, not the fabric bit, at one end of the long edge. One ring should be at the top edge and the other one should be directly below it at the bottom edge. They should be at the opposite end of the plastic to the edge that has the strip of tape on it. Start rolling the rings along the edge of the plastic, making sure they stay nice and straight. Keep rolling until you reach the opposite end where the tape is. Overlap the edges of your plastic with the taped edge on top. Press down firmly along the join as this will hold the piece together. Fold the surplus fabric at either end over the metal rings inside the lantern. You can use a little triangular tool to help tuck it all the way around the ring. Place your base disc, the one without the hole, inside the lantern. Just double check that you have the lantern the right way up. Insert the disc from the top of your lantern and push it down so it sits on top of the bottom ring. Then place the Tealight holder disc, the one with the hole, into the top and adjust it down towards the bottom. Sit your battery Tealight into the hole. And well done, your Constellation lantern is complete. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and we look forward to welcoming you to the next craft kit project next month.